Alexander the Great, a name that has echoed through centuries, the boy king who carved an empire stretching from Greece to India. His victories became legend, his charisma unmatched, his ambition boundless. Yet, for all the records of his life, one mystery refuses to die: the missing tomb of Alexander the Great. More than 2,000 years ago, he was laid to rest in a casket of gold, in a city built to bear his name. But somewhere along history's winding roads, the tomb disappeared, swallowed by wars, earthquakes, and the silence of time. Was it stolen? Was it destroyed? Or does it still lie hidden, waiting for discovery? Archaeologists, treasure hunters, and rulers alike have sought it. From Roman emperors to modern-day excavations, the trail of clues is scattered across history, but never complete. The greatest conqueror's final resting place remains one of history's most enduring enigmas. We follow that trail, from Alexander's deathbed in Babylon to the lost tombs of Alexandria, from the ambitions of emperors to the legends of Cairo's mosques. We chase the echoes of a casket that has been missing for more than 2 millennia. This is the missing casket of Alexander the Great. In June 323 BCE, Babylon simmered beneath the furnace of an early summer sun. The air inside the sprawling palace was thick, almost suffocating, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Behind guarded doors, Alexander the Great, only 32 years of age, lay confined to his bed. The man who had once charged fearlessly across deserts, rivers, and mountains now trembled under the weight of fever. His skin burned, his voice cracked, and his once commanding gaze dimmed. Generals, companions, and attendants gathered at his side, men hardened by war but powerless in the face of this unseen enemy. They could conquer armies, topple empires, and bend kings to their will, yet none could halt the slow fading of the man who had led them to glory. Ancient chroniclers, eager to capture the gravity of the moment, left behind conflicting whispers of his final words. Some claimed he declared his empire should belong to the strongest, a cryptic riddle that seeded decades of bloodshed. Others insisted he said nothing at all, slipping quietly into silence, leaving his generals to quarrel over the ashes of his greatness. Debate still rages over the cause of his death. Was it malaria, typhoid, or the cruel twist of poisoning at the hands of those who envied his crown? Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable. The sudden extinguishing of Alexander's flame sent shockwaves rippling across the ancient world. This was no ordinary king. This was a man who dreamed of pushing beyond the edges of the known world and reshaping it in his image. Yet the death of Alexander raised a question that struck deeper than grief or succession. What was to be done with his body? Macedonian tradition demanded burial in the homeland, but Alexander was no ordinary Macedonian. He had fashioned himself a god-king, a son of Zeus, a figure who had stepped into the realm of myth even while alive. Could such a man rest in an ordinary grave? His corpse was no mere shell of flesh. It was a relic, a political weapon, a holy object that carried the weight of legitimacy. Whoever controlled his body would control the symbolism of his empire. To claim Alexander's remains was to claim Alexander's legacy. From the moment he drew his final breath, the scramble began. The great conqueror had left no clear heir, no stable plan of succession, and so his corpse became the prize. His generals, men bound to him by blood, battle, and ambition, understood that the struggle for Alexander's empire would not be fought only on the fields of war, but also over the possession of his remains. In life, his presence commanded loyalty. In death, his body promised authority. Thus, from the stillness of that Babylonian chamber, began one of history's most haunting mysteries: the long, twisted story of the missing casket of Alexander the Great. Alexander's body, according to the chroniclers, was placed in a magnificent sarcophagus of hammered gold, resting within a golden carriage designed to dazzle the world. This was no ordinary bier. The funeral cart was described as an engineering marvel, almost like a moving palace on wheels. It bore jeweled columns, draped purple fabrics, and a vaulted roof that shimmered under the Babylonian sun. The sight of it was meant not only to honor the dead king, but to remind every eye that looked upon it that this was no mortal corpse, but the remains of a man who had reshaped the known world. In death, as in life, Alexander would travel like a god among men. The journey of this casket was to be no simple funeral procession. Ancient accounts say it took nearly 2 full years to prepare his body, a delay that speaks volumes about the reverence and fear surrounding him. Embalmers preserved him with rare resins, perfumes, and honey, a process designed to make his flesh incorruptible, eternal. Rituals were performed daily, prayers whispered, offerings made, as if the body itself contained the destiny of the empire. The casket, glittering and perfumed, was not just a vessel for the dead. It was a spectacle meant to project power across kingdoms and to silence any doubt that Alexander's memory would outlive them all. But where was this golden casket meant to go? Macedonian tradition demanded that he be returned to Aegae, the royal cemetery of the Argead dynasty in northern Greece, where his ancestors lay buried. Yet rumors spread of another wish, one attributed to Alexander himself, that he should rest at the temple of Zeus Ammon in Siwa, deep in the Egyptian desert. It was there, years earlier, that priests had greeted him as the son of a god, confirming his divine parentage. To be buried at Siwa would not simply honor a tradition. It would elevate his death into the realm of myth, turning his tomb into a shrine that might rival the pyramids themselves. In this conflict of tradition and ambition lay the seeds of a struggle that would shape history. His generals, each hungry for legitimacy, understood the immense power of the corpse they guarded. Whoever held the body did not merely command the remains of a king, they possessed the soul of an empire. And so, as the golden casket gleamed, it became not just a funerary object but the most coveted prize of the ancient world, a prize that men would fight, deceive, and kill to control. The body began its journey westward. The golden carriage rolled out of Babylon in solemn procession, drawn by teams of mules and guarded by soldiers, its jeweled columns glinting under the desert sun. The destination was Macedonia, where Alexander's forefathers lay buried. To the watching crowds, it was not merely a funeral, it was the movement of a god across the earth. But the general Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted companions, had other plans. Stationed in Egypt, he knew that possession of Alexander's remains meant more than honor, it meant legitimacy. Ptolemy was carving his own kingdom along the Nile, and with the conqueror's casket in his hands, he could bind his new dynasty to Alexander's divine image. To bury the fallen king in Egyptian soil was to proclaim Egypt, not Macedonia, as the heart of his legacy. So Ptolemy acted. He diverted the procession, seizing the casket and steering it southward into Egypt. Across blistering sands the golden sarcophagus traveled until it reached Memphis, the ancient city of the pharaohs. There, within a land already steeped in timeless kingship, Ptolemy enshrined Alexander's body. The conqueror, worshipped as a god in life, was now claimed by Egypt in death. This was the first theft, the first great diversion in a story that would stretch across centuries. Alexander's body was no longer traveling home to Macedonia. Instead, it had become the cornerstone of a new dynasty, a relic of power that would be fought over again and again. Memphis was only the beginning. Ptolemy's successors understood that a body so sacred, so politically powerful, could not rest in a city of fading glory. By the 3rd century BCE, the golden casket was carried north to Alexandria, the glittering metropolis Alexander himself had carved into the Mediterranean coast. To place the conqueror in his own city was to anchor Egypt's new dynasty in the shadow of his legend. In Alexandria, his remains were enshrined in the Soma, a grand mausoleum built at the city's very heart. Surrounded by marble colonnades, courtyards of polished stone, and towering statues of gods and kings, the tomb became a monument not merely of death but of divine presence. Pilgrims, poets, and rulers alike flocked to the city, eager to glimpse the mummified body of the man who had redrawn the map of the world. Within a golden sarcophagus, resting beneath vaulted ceilings, Alexander appeared eternal. Greek historians recorded moments of reverence, emperors bending the knee before his coffin, generals bowing in silence, common travelers standing transfixed. In this sacred hall, Alexander was more than memory. He was a living force. Preserved and exalted, he seemed to rule across centuries, a ghostly monarch watching over the city he had dreamed into existence. Yet history is never still. Alexandria was a city perched on shifting ground, shaken by earthquakes, scarred by fires, and coveted by armies. As centuries marched on, the conqueror's tomb became not only a shrine but a target. The glory of the Soma would not last unchallenged, and the fate of Alexander's body grew ever more uncertain with each passing age. When Rome rose to power, emperors themselves sought out Alexander's resting place. Julius Caesar is said to have paid homage at the tomb in 48 BCE, bowing before the man whose conquests had inspired his own ambitions. Octavian, later Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, reportedly kissed Alexander's mummified body, an act that scandalized witnesses. For Romans, Alexander was the model of greatness, the benchmark against which every conqueror measured himself. To stand before his casket was to step into the presence of immortality. His tomb became not only a site of pilgrimage, but a political tool, binding Roman rulers to his eternal image. Yet even as emperors visited, the tomb's treasures began to dwindle. Accounts suggest that by the early centuries CE, the golden sarcophagus was replaced with one of glass or alabaster, perhaps looted, perhaps melted down for coin during times of crisis. Even the conqueror's remains were no longer safe from greed. Still, the tomb endured. But storms were gathering. Rome itself would weaken, and Alexandria's fate would grow darker. By the 3rd and 4th centuries CE, the trail of Alexander's tomb begins to fade into shadows. The once glorious Soma stood in a city shaken by earthquakes, scarred by fires, and ravaged by waves of invasion. Each catastrophe chipped away at the memory of where the conqueror rested. What had been one of the most visited shrines of the ancient world slowly slipped beyond the reach of record-keeping. Some chroniclers whispered that the tomb collapsed in an earthquake, buried under rubble. Others claimed it was sealed away by priests, hidden from looters who sought to melt down the golden casket. Still others insisted that new rulers, hostile to the veneration of pagan shrines, deliberately erased it from existence. By the time of the Arab conquest in the 7th century, the site of Alexander's resting place was already a riddle. And yet, the silence was never absolute. Travelers spoke of a mysterious tomb beneath Alexandria, guarded by secret orders or concealed behind walls of stone. Local legends described sealed chambers, glittering treasures, and the incorruptible body of a king waiting to be found. The line between fact and myth grew faint, and the tomb became a story whispered more than remembered. Thus, the man who once bent the world to his will had defied even death's certainty. The greatest conqueror of the ancient world had, in the end, conquered time itself, vanishing into history's shadows. During the Middle Ages, stories of Alexander's tomb resurfaced across the Islamic world. Chroniclers in Cairo and Baghdad recorded tales of a golden sarcophagus buried beneath mosques, of hidden chambers containing scrolls of forgotten wisdom. To Muslim scholars, Alexander, or Iskandar, as he was known, was a figure of both history and legend, woven into the fabric of prophecy and lore. Some claimed that the casket lay beneath the great mosque of Alexandria, others beneath the streets of Cairo. Treasure hunters dug and searched, convinced that beneath the sands lay a chamber of riches beyond imagination. But none of these tales yielded proof. Instead, the mystery deepened. The more centuries passed, the more Alexander's tomb became less a matter of archaeology and more a matter of faith and fascination. Still, the legend endured. The missing casket haunted imaginations from east to west, a reminder that even the greatest man could vanish without a trace. The 19th and 20th centuries brought fresh eyes to the ancient city of Alexandria. No longer were seekers guided by whispers and legends, but by the tools of archaeology and science. Beneath the bustling streets, teams dug into the earth, peeling back layers of history. They uncovered Roman catacombs, Greek temples, and shattered fragments of dynasties stacked atop one another. Yet the Soma, the legendary mausoleum of Alexander the Great, refused to reveal itself. Intriguing reports stirred hope. In 1900, construction workers stumbled upon a hidden chamber beneath the city, only for it to be hastily sealed by authorities, its secrets lost again. Later decades brought more claims. Alabaster coffins glimmering under torchlight, glass sarcophagi rumored to hold human remains. Each time, speculation flared. only to collapse under doubt. None of these finds could be definitively tied to the conqueror. The challenge lies not in belief, but in access. Modern Alexandria sits squarely atop its ancient foundations, a living city built on ruins. Beneath its crowded streets, concrete foundations, and traffic, any large-scale excavation borders on impossible. The tomb may be there, slumbering just a few meters beneath the noise of daily life, hidden not by time alone, but by civilization itself. And so the search endures. Archaeologists, historians, and dreamers continue to chase one of the greatest riddles of antiquity. Could the incorruptible body of Alexander the Great still be waiting, sealed away in silence, just beyond the reach of human hands? Across centuries, scholars, explorers, and dreamers have advanced dozens of theories about the fate of Alexander's tomb. Some insist it was destroyed outright, swallowed by earthquakes, toppled in riots, or looted beyond recognition. Others believe the conqueror's body was moved in secret, some pointing to Constantinople, others to Venice, hidden beneath the relics of saints to mask its identity. Each claim adds another layer to the riddle. One of the most enduring theories suggests that the tomb still lies beneath Alexandria itself. Beneath its mosques, its shops, and its crowded avenues, some swear the casket remains sealed in stone, its golden walls untouched for 2 millennia. The Mosque of Nabi Daniel, in particular, has drawn endless speculation. Locals whisper of a chamber buried beneath it, locked away and protected by silence. Some travelers even claim that access was once granted, only for the secret to vanish again into rumor. Other, more radical voices push the story further. They argue that Alexander's remains may have been transported to Cairo in antiquity, concealed to safeguard them from marauders. If true, then the body of the greatest conqueror may rest not in his shining city by the sea, but beneath the sands of another ancient capital, hidden in plain sight. The lack of physical evidence only deepens the allure. Without bones to study or relics to analyze, the mystery expands into legend. And perhaps that is its true power. The missing tomb has transformed from a monument of stone into a myth of eternity, ensuring that Alexander's aura endures, not as a corpse in a coffin, but as a question forever unanswered. Why does the search for Alexander's casket matter? Because his tomb is not just about bones and gold. It is about memory, power, and the way history clings to the dead. Whoever finds it would not only solve a mystery, but hold in their hands the remains of the man who reshaped the world. The missing casket is more than a relic. It is a mirror of Alexander's ambition. Just as his empire stretched beyond the known, so too does his story stretch beyond certainty. His life was boundless, and so is his legend. To find his tomb would be to bridge the gap between myth and history. It would confirm ancient records, rewrite what we know of empires, and deliver a spectacle unlike any archaeological discovery of our time. But perhaps the greatest truth lies in the mystery itself. In remaining lost, Alexander's tomb keeps him immortal, always pursued, never possessed, always larger than life. For over 2,000 years, the world has hunted for Alexander's missing casket. From Babylon to Alexandria, from emperors to explorers, the trail has twisted through time but never come to rest. And maybe that is the secret, that some mysteries are too vast, too powerful to be resolved. What we do know is that Alexander's story did not end with his death. It continues in every search, every excavation, every whispered theory. The conqueror who refused to be bound by borders refuses also to be bound by the grave. And so the question lingers. Somewhere beneath the sands of Egypt or the stones of Alexandria, does the golden casket still lie? Or has it vanished forever, swallowed by time? This has been the missing casket of Alexander the Great. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more history brought to life. This is After Time, where the past lives on.